Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the history of video gaming. My name is Wes, and I'm here, as always, with Ben. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little tired, to be honest. You know, we're recording on a Monday, and Mondays kind of suck, but...
Late on a Monday, too.
Yeah, late on a Monday, but I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, yeah. I had the day off on this Monday, so not as bad for me, I guess.
Lucky, you know.
But let's get started. You want to start off with what games you've been playing recently?
Yeah, sure. I've been playing a little bit of StarCraft. We played a little bit, what was that, last night?
Last night, yeah.
With our buddies, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, the madness of a 4v4 is fantastic.
Yeah. And we won a game, which I was really happy about.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun. But I've been playing a little bit on my own too. There's just a lot going on with StarCraft, I feel, because we've got Nation Wars that we've been doing our like fantasy draft and following that pretty closely. And then Home Story Cup was this past weekend, another sort of independent tournament.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There's a bunch of smaller tournaments also happening pretty soon, so I just feel like I'm kind of back in it, you know, back in the scene. Yeah.
Bunch of stuff going on, interested in everything.
Yeah, I've been doing that, and then I've also finished Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, wow.
3. Yeah, finished yesterday. So,
nice. What is the final verdict?
Well, I kind of binged it just for the podcast because I knew I was going to say something. I don't know. I really like it. I really do, but I also am like, I feel like it could have been so much better.
Yeah.
If it just had like changed a couple things. I think the thing I'm most upset about is things feel like really convenient all the time.
Yeah. The one that got me the most was in like the last fight when he's like, boop, I'm in the Avatar state now. And you're like, what?
I know. Well, the thing is too, like, I know it's sort of a kid show, but
yeah.
I thought 100% going into the last fight, someone's dying, right? In my mind, I was like, okay, you know, the father of Katara is like dead. You know, he's gonna die. Like, maybe Boomy's gonna die. I was like, you know, this is the big fight. You know, the one that ends the series. Like, and then I thought, oh, someone close is gonna die or appear to die, and that's gonna trigger the Avatar state. And it was like, nope, he just gets hit in the back. And I was like, wow, that kind of really let me down. But and nobody dies, so not spoiler, but
it's good to have a little consequence, but I think it is, I mean, you can definitely still appreciate it as an adult, but it is a kid's show.
Yeah, so I was and I thought also things were like really convenient. Like, I think in season 2 it took, I don't know, 6-7 episodes to get to Ba Sing Se, you know, the Earth capital.
Yeah.
And then in the last episode, they're like, we're there now, you know, like from the Fire Kingdom. It took like a day. And I was like, what? Like, I'm pretty sure it took you like 3 weeks last time. So, like, there's a whole episode where they have to go through like this little serpent pass thing.
I remember that,
I guess you don't have to do that now? I don't know. So, yeah, it's definitely got issues. But I will say the ending was good enough to make me want to start The Legend of Korra. I haven't started yet, but I think I'm going to.
And that is, it's different too. Go into it with an open mind, but
I'm okay with that.
I really enjoyed it. There was a couple times where I was like, it's gonna get better, so I'm gonna keep watching it. But it was never like so bad that I just wanted to drop it. There's a couple times where it's like, but it's overall like it's good.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I wouldn't say it's like phenomenal.
Yeah, well, I think some of it's the nostalgia and the retrospect. Everyone posting all the stuff from Avatar and being like, look how awesome this was. And there's a lot of cool stuff. It's
just like, I kind of grew up with Naruto, and coming from that, it's very different for me, I think.
Right.
Because I was expecting more like a Naruto, and it wasn't that. So
yeah, and to be fair, they had like, 40 episodes where Naruto had like 1,000 to build characters.
Right.
Or I mean, counting Shippuden, but you know.
Yeah. I just feel like I felt the power levels of all the characters was really weird and off. It was like, Sokka can't really do anything, so we're going to make an episode where he learns how to wield a sword, and now he's a master. In like one day. And I was like, really? One day? And I don't know. There's some weird stuff going on.
Yeah,
The whole
I get
ending
that.
fight, I was like, I can't tell if this is supposed to be a mismatch or if they're supposed to be about equal, you know? Like, I don't know. I just felt with like Naruto, a lot of the older, you know, apparently better masters were like significantly better than the main characters for a long time, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And with this one, it felt like the main characters were about as good as anybody.
Yeah,
at all times.
they're all just like super gifted off the bat. Like Katara gets super strong, but yeah.
Yeah, Katara's like, well, I never had a teacher, but I guess I'll spend 2 weeks at the North Pole and now I'm the best waterbender in the world. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe not 2 weeks, but
they do some cool, interesting stuff with that in Legend of Korra, though. You got that to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about it. I still enjoyed it. I mean, I don't want to hate on it too much, but yeah.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. Healthy criticism.
Yeah. So, what have you been doing though, Wes? What have you been playing?
Well, so I didn't think ahead like you did and said, okay, let me do something new so I can have something to talk about for the podcast. So I have just been playing a lot more League and a lot more Pokemon Sword.
Well, tell me about Pokemon Sword, because like literally the day after we recorded last time, I read on Reddit that people already started modding in the other Pokemon. I was like, oh my god.
I might, after I beat the main campaign, I might check that out. But also, like,
yeah,
I think I had said this the first time, but as someone who I played Gen 1, I checked out of all the Pokemon games until like 2 months ago when I played Gen 5 on like an emulator.
Yeah.
There's 400 or 300 something, I think, in Pokemon Sword. And that's too many options for me already. Like, if there had been 800, I would have been like, oh my god, because I keep thinking I'm finding a new Pokemon to the series, and it's like, no, this was in Gen 3. And I was like, oh shit, whoops. But
that's funny.
Yeah, so for that aspect, I mean, I can get why people are upset about it, but that doesn't affect me at all.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many, like, right after it released, everyone's just like, it's destroying my Switch. There's crashes everywhere. The world's ending. It deleted all my saves. And I think it did for a couple people, but like, overall, it's been like perfectly fine. I think people were just pretty upset about a bunch of stuff going into it. So they wanted to cause a stink after it released. I'd be curious to see how well it ended up selling, too, because it is...
Oh, I bet it sold a lot.
It probably did, yeah. The hype was there for it. And they do a lot of cool stuff. I don't think it's like, this is the most amazing thing ever, but it's like a really good Pokemon game.
Nice.
You can make your Pokemon gigantic for some reason, which, like... why the heck not, you know? And then
are there shinies in this one?
There are, yeah.
Oh god.
And there's shiny hunting, but in
it's gonna take your life away.
Well, we'll see. In Pokemon Go, I shiny hunt because it's a 1 in 450 chance. In Pokemon Sword, unless you like do stuff to boost your chance, I think it's a 1 in 4,000.
Oh my god.
So like, I don't know if shinies are cool, but I don't know if I'm gonna. They don't affect stats at all. Like, I'm not even like farming for the Pokemon with good stats now. I just catch one of each and I'm like, okay, cool, good to go.
Yeah.
So if I ever got into like the PvP scene, maybe, but I don't think I'm going to. I don't even have the Nintendo Online yet.
Have you caught anybody from first gen in it that I would know?
I'm trying to.
That you're using?
Not that I'm using, because I ended up using a bunch of new people. But I mean
that's cool too.
There's Digletts and Machops and all that all over the place. I haven't seen any of the starters yet, but I think the Gen 1 starters are in it.
Okay, cool.
You might get them like through a special way. I haven't seen them around. Is there anyone else? No, I don't think anyone from Gen 1 that I'm using, but there's definitely a bunch of them around. But yeah, so that's been really good. And League has been handing my butt to me on a silver platter every time I play it. But it's really fun. I'm surprised by how fun it is. It's kind of like StarCraft. Like, it was funny because the two guys that we were playing StarCraft with hadn't played it at all before, and it was just this huge learning curve. And one of them is like really good at League, and the other one knows a decent bit about League. And so it's just funny because I was like, oh wait, I know about StarCraft a little bit because I've actually played it. And so I could see myself getting to the like level of competence I have in StarCraft with League and being like pretty happy with that.
Nice. You're pretty good in StarCraft, dude. Honestly,
don't flatter me too much, man.
I feel like at times I'm just like totally out of it and you're just carrying.
That's just because I do mass hydro while you're scouting the map. But
yeah, I'm like, oh my god, he's building a lot of air units. I need you.
Yeah.
And then you kill all the air units, and I'll like protect the base or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Make a good team.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, it's been I've been enjoying. I hadn't done a game in a while where it was like grind to get good kind of thing, and I think I was in the mood for that kind of experience. So yeah,
Nice.
it's been really good. But I guess if unless you have anything to add, we could get right into our special topic for the day.
Let's do it.
So today we are going to be talking about what we alluded to last week, the AY3-8500 chip, which we're going to be seeing used in a lot of consoles in 76 and onwards, probably different iterations of the AY3-8500 being used. I'm probably just going to call it the chip from now on because I'm going to keep throwing out different numbers if I say that sequence over and over again.
Yeah.
But so what this basically is a lot of the consoles before were using like larger discrete electrical components, and there was just like a lot of different circuits. Some of them had like chips. I mean, some of them had like 90 different chips in them. But what this was an integrated circuit that allowed for the same or sometimes even greater capabilities on a much smaller scale, and it was also a lot more affordable. And this chip was created by General Instruments, which is an electronics manufacturer that's started in Horsham, PA, which is semi-local to us, interestingly enough.
Represent.
Yeah. PA's they're getting in on that gaming stuff. We've mentioned them a couple times. It's good.
I feel like, wasn't the last time we mentioned them, someone went out of business, though?
Yeah, you're probably right. But, we were in there still.
Yeah, I forget who that was. PMC Electronics, I think it was.
Oh, that's right. That sounds right. Yeah. So you won't be hearing about them anymore. But General Instrument, at least for a little bit longer, you might be hearing about. And this was kind of a big deal, too, because it was a chip made by a company that was specifically being manufactured so it could be sold to companies to make video game consoles, which is sort of a roundabout way to saying it. But it's like there's a market for people making components for video game consoles now, which I'm sure was always there, but it's definitely building where there's like this whole industry kind of gathering around the same way that like there's a whole bunch of companies making arcade cabinets. And it's now there's these people who are making the components like much more specialized so you can do better stuff with home consoles.
I think the fact that it was that single chip, that they could just sell that one chip, they weren't responsible for all this other 70 parts or whatever, and that made it cheap enough that they kind of created their own industry, Right.
Yeah, because they realized that if they can put all that stuff on that one chip, then they're just like selling the thing that you need to make a game console. Like the companies had to build the shell and all the things that connected and interacted with it after that. And before I get off of General Instruments, just a brief weird anecdote. They ended up changing to a different name. I think it was in '98 and got bought by Motorola somehow. So this chip, Motorola is somehow associated with it.
Interesting.
But to give you an idea of what the chip actually was, it was designed to play 6 different Pong variants, basically, as well as output sound. It communicated with TV sets using radio waves, basically, using an RF modulator. And it also had the capability to display on-screen scoring, as well as a bunch of other things. So it was just kind of wrapping together a bunch of features that some of the best consoles we've seen so far had, and slapping it onto one chip that everybody could buy. The 6 games that it had available on it were tennis, soccer, squash, a practice mode, and those are all fairly self-explanatory for some of the ones that we've seen before. And then also Rifle Game 1 and Rifle Game 2, which I'll describe in a sec. And also a secret-ish sort of 7th game that wasn't really officially listed anywhere. And it wasn't used on that many systems that used this chip, but it was called Handicap, and it was just a game of soccer, except the player on the right side had a third paddle so that the left side was at a handicap, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, pretty cool, honestly. I'm surprised it wasn't more well documented, but it was very clear that they didn't like market that one, which is interesting.
Right. Yeah. I wonder if it was like at some point just like a testing kind of thing or a capability that was just left in there for some reason. But it's kind of neat because I think we'll see, and you can probably speak to this a little better, that some consoles in the future are going to be using that game.
Yeah, but it's not many at all, honestly. I think most didn't know about it or didn't take advantage, but there are a couple that do. And the ones that do, I always think, wow, I think this is better with the 7th game included.
Right.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I also say, by the way, you listed the game names, but each manufacturer that gets this chip and makes their own console just calls them something different. So, if you hear us, when we talked about the Colco Telstar, they said handball instead of practice, right? So
that's true.
Just be careful, if people are looking this up.
Yeah, soccer could be like basketball or hockey or football if it's a European release. Like, they're all similar. Mm-hmm. They just have to have multiple paddles, which I actually don't know if... Did this soccer have multiple paddles?
Yeah,
I think so, right? 2 and 2, right? It had a forward and a goalie.
4 total.
That's right. Yeah, so they could probably rebrand these in whichever way.
Mm-hmm.
But I did want to briefly describe, too, the rifle games, because I thought that was super interesting. And it sounds like these worked in the same way that sort of like the old Odyssey rifle peripheral worked. Mm-hmm. And they would have to, the console, people who were creating a console, I'm guessing, would make the rifle peripheral themselves. But this had the technology so that it could respond to that. And Rifle Game 1, the ball just kind of bounced across the screen, sort of like the old school DVD screensaver, I'm guessing.
Okay.
That's going to be a very outdated reference, I'm sure. But
it was weird that you said old school, because I'm like, oh, they had DVDs in the 70s, right? No. It's like middle school. It's not old school. It's like
old school for us. And depending on who's listening, they're going to be like, DVDs. No, probably not. But and in this mode, you had 15 shots to hit the ball as many times as you can. And then the second rifle game was kind of interesting. It's almost like skeet shooting, and I'm curious to see if in the future some people call it that when they use it, because the ball would travel diagonally from left to right, but it was only when the serve button was hit. So you could have someone serve for you and then kind of skeet shoot.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's kind of at least a little more interesting to interact with somebody than the first rifle game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and by the way, we'll check out all of these games individually on a future console release that has all 6. So I don't know if we'll ever check out one that has the handicap game, but we will be rating these eventually too once a console comes out that has them all. But up until this point in our timeline, we've only talked about the Telstar, which only used 3 of the games. Well, 4 of the games. 3 or 4, I don't know. But they didn't make a light gun for that, so those last 2 games just weren't included in that version of the console. So, but we will be covering it in future for a in-depth review.
Right. Yeah, and this is just to give you the idea of this chip that we're going to see used fairly frequently, and all the games that they could play, whether the console made use of that or not. And another random interesting thing that I found when I was doing a little bit of research on this is that the chip also had several options that the companies could mess around with when they were making their consoles. I'm not sure if I'm guessing these could work like some of the interactable game speed difficulty knobs that consoles make, because they had a random ball speed modifier, I guess you could call it. And also they had something you could do where you could make random bounce angles off of the paddles, which sounds like it would be a bit of a pain, and I don't know exactly how it works, but it's interesting that this really gave, for the time, like tons of options to just like get this and be like, okay, make a console out of it.
Yeah, and I think because of all those options, the same manufacturers could make multiple different consoles using that same chip. Like this one uses the random bounce. We'll call it some other weird name, and say there are 5 different games, and then we'll make a second console that doesn't do that. So
right, yeah.
That's kind of why we get so many consoles, is people are just like, I'll just stick a new name on it and sell it as different, and it's really not really that different.
Yeah, but...
I mean, maybe it is a little different, but it uses the same chip anyway, so...
Yeah, and that's pretty much all I had for the AY3 8500 chip. Did you have any other stuff you wanted to add in there?
I just wanted to say that this chip is like so incredibly important. I mean, you mentioned it in the last episode that the Telstar sold, you said, I think it was over 1 million copies, right?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, a lot, right? And that was just that one console, and there's probably 100 consoles that use this chip before it stops getting made. So, I mean, it really like just explodes the whole home console industry, and everybody starts making chips and everybody starts buying it. And it gets to the point where, because it was so profitable at the beginning, I think it has some part to play in there's a like video game crash of 1980, I want to say. Well, obviously we'll be talking about this in the future again, but I think a lot of it goes back to this chip that we're talking about right now.
Oh wow. Okay.
I mean, it's gonna shape the next couple of years of video gaming pretty drastically. Just this one little chip. So it's pretty insane to think about, I think. And obviously there was going to be, sequels to this chip. There's going to be competitors that are making their own chips. We'll go over all of that in future, but this is the one that started it all. And as a reminder, there's going to be consoles releasing all year, but we're just going to focus on a couple of the big ones and review a couple of the ones that we've got nice videos and stuff for, so that we can really take a look at some of these games, including the shooting ones. So be prepared for that. I forget where they are exactly in the timeline, but you'll know it when it comes. We'll say it.
They're coming. Yeah, we'll let you know if it's using this chip and we're highlighting one of the rifle games or whatever else from that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and by the way, the Telstar was the first one that used this chip, so I thought that was kind of interesting too. Apparently, as a competitor to the Magnavox chips, which they were making, but were only for them, whereas this one,
okay,
General Instruments was making stuff for anybody. Anybody could buy it. So, yeah, it was cool. I think with that though, Wes, I think we're ready to jump into the timeline. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Let's get straight into it.
Hello and welcome back from that amazing music transition. As always. We never know what it is, but we always know it's great. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I might know what it is.
Oh man.
I did like 2 in one weekend to try to get ready for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So you got the insider info this time.
I think so. It might have been The Sims, or that could have been last week, because I could be counting wrong. But The Sims music is really, really good, but a lot of it, I'm trying to remember, a lot of it was like really hard, if I remember right. It was a lot of piano, a lot of like weird piano, jazz piano kind of thing.
Huh. I'll have to send you the just the opening menu music for Sword is Pokemon Sword is just like, kind of normal, like remixed Pokemon theme. Mm-hmm. But then just out of nowhere comes like 15 seconds of intense slap bass.
Oh yeah. I definitely need to hear that.
I had no idea what was going on, but I'll have to show it to you, and hopefully some slap bass or something might make it into one of these episode transitions.
That's it. Yeah, maybe I should do that for one. As soon as one comes up that it would work for, I'll do it.
All right,
let's get into it. So first off, we got a console here called the Lasonic 2000, also known as the Lasonic 76, I believe. This is just another kind of boring console. It came out sometime in 76, so I placed it kind of high up. It had sound, which is good, but it did not have on-screen scoring, which is really bad.
Yeah.
We also don't have much info for it. I couldn't find any video or anything. We do have a couple of screenshots, and they look okay. They don't look that bad. But without the on-screen scoring, it kind of feels like it's missing something. It played 3 games. It has tennis, which I believe was the Pong version, so only up and down. It also had football, which is a hockey type game with smaller goals on both sides. But it only had 1 paddle for each person, which I thought was a little different from most hockey. And finally, it had squash, which was a 2-player versus wall type game. And I believe it was one of those where, like, it would hit 1 paddle, and then the other person had to hit it after it hit the wall, and then you go back and forth until somebody misses.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But again, without on-screen scoring, it probably didn't even keep score. So
you had to know your squash rules to be able to actually.
Yeah, you would have to know which paddle you were, I guess.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And not hit the ball when, it was your opponent's turn by accident. I feel like it would be hard, but this one used discrete logic with the bajillion components. It did not use a chip. So we're going to be seeing less and less of those, but there's still quite a few here at the beginning before the AY38500 really gets, into most manufacturers' hands. So, yep. That was a Lasonic. It was okay, I guess. It was released in France, by the way, which is kind of cool. It had a nice sort of orange kind of layout on the box and stuff. The console itself, by the way, the controllers are detachable, which is pretty nice. So It did have that going for it. It actually looks kind of fancy, like kind of stainless steel parts. Maybe, it might not have been. It could have been like aluminum or something, something cheaper, but it looks kind of nice, honestly. But I wish it would have played better games and had some freaking on-screen scoring. What are you doing? So, yeah, that was the first one. Moving on right into some arcade games here. We've got Air Combat by Digital Games. This one came out in February of 76, so we are officially in the February of this year. So this one, we don't really know that much about it. We only have a couple flyers and some testimonials, which I had to tell you about, Wes. But it looks like a clone of Jet Fighter by Atari, or I think even maybe a clone of Ace, which was by Alley Leisure, right? That you did.
Yes, yeah.
So I think it could be a clone of that as well. But I have to read you this. It was by Digital Games, and they're not going to be around that much longer. Minor spoiler. We'll talk about them later. But on the All in Color for a Quarter blog that we reference quite often, they have an interview here by somebody who worked for Digital Games or was hired by them right around the time Air Combat came out, and they have a little testimonial about Air Combat, and I have to read this to you. I think it's pretty awesome. So it says, they had a huge order for their new Air Combat game designed by their infamous and now departed amateur designer. Bill had already had the cabinets and PCBs made and stuffed. Only thing was, it didn't work. When I arrived, all the techies were huddled around PCBs trying almost literally to make things fly. Documentation was a mess. The prototypes were a mess. The problems were that 1, no one understood how it worked, and 2, it didn't work. And I was like, wow. So, yeah, that one, I don't know how many of those they sold.
Or how many of the ones they sold that actually worked. But
yeah, the fact that we can't find any real concrete evidence of it leads me to believe they did sell many. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Old Digital Games. The guy gets hired and he comes to work and nobody knows what's going on. So, yeah. So, Wes, I'm really, really kind of excited and worried about what you're going to say about this next one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering. So next up, we have a good one that I didn't get to play, but we had a couple good videos of the actual cabinet working that I was able to get a good idea of it. And the reason Ben is tentative is that this is the sequel to a Benjamin favorite, Drop Zone 4 by Meadows Games.
Oh, yeah.
And this one's called Bombs Away by Meadows Games. And I gotta say, Ben, I don't know how many improvements it makes on Drop Zone 4 because I didn't do a direct comparison, but this one's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, tell me about the sky. Just for right off the back, I gotta know what you thought.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah. Exactly. It's good.
It gives you an idea of height and actually makes it so I don't know. Otherwise your plane just looks like it's floating in the same 2D plane as whatever you're bombing instead of sort of giving it a not 3D but an illusion of depth.
Yeah. I just love the design of how they used the shades of color to make the sky, it just looks good. I don't know. It's the best looking sky of any game I've played, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Any of the ones that we've gone through so far, definitely. And I can agree with that after playing Bombs Away.
Well, just so you know, I wanted to say real quick, I have looked at both these games, Bombs Away and Drop Zone 4. I think almost all the improvements were made just to the bottom half. Because in Drop Zone 4, a lot of the ships and stuff were just rectangles with nothing.
Okay, yeah, so I think that makes sense for how what I'm reviewing, so that should work out perfectly.
Okay, great.
Or what I highlight in my review, at least. So let's take it back to just starting off with some history about the cabinet and just some information about it. The cabinet was actually a slightly shorter height than the normal arcade cabinet that we've been seeing, and it's kind of like a wider size for some reason, not sure. And it did have some pretty good designs on the front, like around the screen of like the ocean and some explosions coming out of the water, and then there's clouds up above and fighter jets coming down from it, and it's pretty good. It gives you a good feel of how this game's going to go. I will say the Bombs Away lettering on the cabinet like doesn't match the tone of like the fighter jets and the explosions at all. It's just like these giant like balloon bubble letters that say Bombs Away, and like there's planes like fighting everywhere. But other than that, it's real good. And also the controls are pretty funny, because if you remember from Drop Zone 4, everyone who's listening, it's basically the plane moves on its own, you're dropping a bomb, and it's a timing game of when you hit your targets below you. And so the controls are just one button, and that's it. And I do think that kind of has a good feel to it for some reason. It's just like you walk up to this cabinet, there's all these planes, you know what your job is, and there's just a red button in the center, and that's what you got to do. You just got to press that button. So I like that. And they also, Meadows Game was taking a shot at everyone else who's making arcade games at this point, because in their flyer they say, Bombs Away is a direct hit with players bored by paddle and driving games.
Oh.
So they're calling everybody out. They're like, hey, we see what you've all been doing. Jet fighter's okay, but we give you something different. Mm-hmm. And also just an interesting like arcade aspect of it that I don't think I've seen before, although, you know, I'm not an arcade aficionado or anything, but they gave a free game if you scored 40 points or if you scored no points at all.
Weird.
Because they said it's hard to not score any points, so they're going to give you a free game if you don't score any. So they must have just put that in there because they figure out of 15 bombs you're going to hit something.
Yeah.
So getting into the gameplay of it, your plane travels left to right across the screen, and then after it goes off the right side, it goes right back over to the left side. It doesn't like loop back and forth. And you have to time when you drop bombs on ships that are below you. And you have 15 bombs, like I mentioned, before the game ends. There might be a time limit in the background, but I didn't notice one, so I think it's just dropping the bombs, but not positive on that. And part of what makes this one really interesting is that there's 3 color-coded ships that are worth more points the further down on the screen they are. The very top is blue cruisers that move like a medium speed. Then you have the green battleships in the middle, which move incredibly fast and go the opposite direction as the blue cruisers. And at the very bottom, you have yellow aircraft carriers, which are worth the most points. So they do a good job of kind of giving you different objectives and making it hard to get to those aircraft carriers, which I thought was really fun. The battleships are moving left to right, while the carriers and cruisers are moving right to left. And an interesting thing about when you drop the bomb, and this might have been the same in Drop Zone 4, it looks like for a split second it kind of maintains the speed of your plane, but then it just kind of drops off and falls at a sharp angle.
Yeah, it was like that in the last one.
And I like that because it makes it so there's a learning curve to dropping the bomb, but also it looks cool. Mm-hmm. Just like it kind of looks like it's actually arcing the way that it would. And something that it was nice in the video that we got to watch of this, the guy noticed it, pointed it out, and kind of exemplified it perfectly, that after you get 20 points, the plane starts moving faster. Mm-hmm. And I would guess since there's a free game at 40 that it might even start moving faster at 40 as well. But all we can confirm is that at 20 it starts to move faster to make the game a little bit more difficult. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on here, and I have a decent bit to say about the graphics, so I kind of want to get straight into the ratings.
Let's do it.
First thing is the colors on the screen are really good. The flyer mentions a multicolored TV display. I'm not sure in the context of 1976 what that means, but since the color is only different colors and like horizontal stripes across the screen, I think it's an overlay. But As far as the technical term for it, I don't really know. But either way, there's color on the screen, and it looks really good. The gradient sky colors that Ben loved, as I specifically have in my notes from Drop Zone 4, are still there, and they're really cool and give you a nice feeling of like altitude. And for a game like this, it kind of helps you get immersed a little bit more, because it doesn't look like you're just dropping this bomb on this straight black background that doesn't give you any like feeling of depth or height or anything. So I really did like that part of it. And also, as Ben mentioned, the bottom is where this gets a lot more interesting than Drop Zone 4 and kind of adds a lot. The color coordination on the ships, even though it's just simple 3 colors, I think is really nice. Just something as simple as having them all different colors makes it visually more interesting and makes it easier to identify which one you want to hit. And also the ships themselves are like the best part of the graphics in Bombs Away. They're sprites, if that's the right phrase for what they are at this point. Look really detailed for the time. There's 3 like very distinct ships, and they all have a lot of good detail. You can definitely tell like the aircraft carrier has the tower all the way in the back, and then the wide landing strip or takeoff area on it as well. Not landing strip, you don't land on the aircraft carriers. I don't know. But it's an arcade cabinet. It doesn't matter as much. Either way, they look really good. And also they all have different sinking sprites that after they get hit, they go into a different position with like their bow up in the air.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and all those look really good as well. And the main downside for the graphics, which is like really kind of weird and out of place, is the plane in this.
That's so weird, because the plane was like the best looking thing in the last one. But
yeah, and
they probably didn't change it at all.
Well, I think they might have, unless I was just like totally not noticing it. Because I have specifically in my notes here too that unlike Drop Zone 4, the plane is just a sideways L. And
oh, weird. No, it was definitely better than that in the last one, I think.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure. And you can see the bomb when it's on the plane, which is kind of nice, but the bomb's just a rectangle. So it's just like this plane with this rectangle, or this L floating around with this rectangle on it. And I'm guessing part of that is, I mean, the technology probably improved a bit, but maybe not enough that they were just like, well, trade off, make the ships look really good, make the plane look less good.
Yeah.
So I got through all that, and I was so excited I didn't even say what my rating was for it. But given how good the rest of it looks, even though the plane doesn't look that great, I gave it a 3.5 out of 10, because I thought it was really visually interesting, and just the small things that they do with the gradients and the different color ships really do a lot to make it better than a lot of the arcade games that we've played recently. And so for sound, I gave it a 1.5 out of 10. The sounds were pretty good in this, but there wasn't anything like spectacular. The mist sound is pretty good. It sounds vaguely like a bomb hitting water, but it's kind of strange. But the hit sound's definitely good. It's very clearly an explosion, and it works well with the visuals of the explosion and the ship sinking too. So that's really good. And as far as I could tell from the videos we watched, I don't think there were any other sounds other than those two. I was hoping kind of for like a plain idling sound in the background, or like a whistle when the bomb drops would have been pretty cool. But they didn't really do anything spectacular, but the sounds that they did have were good. So 1.5 out of 10 for that. They did a decent job, but not anything crazy. And then for the gameplay, I gave it a 3 out of 10. The gameplay also isn't anything insane. Like I was saying, there's only one button, and all you have to do is time. But there's still a lot of fun to be had with it, I think. Just learning the timing of the drops is nice, and the fact that there's targets moving at different speeds, I think just adds another layer of like, you can learn your timing for how to hit the aircraft carriers, but if you get intercepted by one of the cruisers that's speeding by, then you get less points. So it's a nice bit of difficulty that I don't think is too difficult, but the extra ships and different speeds make it just like difficult enough that it would be fun to learn, I think. And also I think the increase in difficulty based on score is just a cool idea. Being able to just not like, once you get your timing down on the first slow plane movement, just like sweep through the game. I think that's nice, because it gives you just like an incremental, okay, you've mastered it at least to get 20 points. Now you got to get even better and change up your timing a little bit if you want to get more points and get that free game. So I think just the way that it took the simple controls and simple idea, but made it just difficult enough that it takes time and practice to master, but still have fun with it. It seems like it's a really good mix for something like simple, but you want to keep playing to get a little bit better at. And so for the relevance, I gave it a 6 out of 10. I think it's hard to say how relevant this game in particular is, but the more I think about some arcade games that are going to be coming up in the future, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of similar to the moving on the top or moving on the bottom and shooting targets that are above you or shooting targets that are below you. I don't know if there's a specific genre for that, but I had just been talking to somebody about this podcast, and they said that when they were kids back in the 70s, one of their favorite games was Seawolf. And that's actually something that I think we're going to be talking about this year. And I realized Bombs Away is basically just turning Seawolf upside down. So it's hard to say if that was really a direct inspiration. I mean, they're all kind of coming out around the same time, but at least for being part of this sort of genre, I don't really know if there's a name for it or like subgenre of this kind of game, I think it's relevant for that. And also just like they say in the flyer, it does a good job of changing up the formula of like, here's another sports game, racing game, ball and paddle arcade game. It's like, this is something new that's still fun and really kind of, they said, hey, we did this with Drop Zone 4 and it was successful, so let's keep expanding on this genre even though no one's doing something like it right now. So I think it's really cool that they kind of did their own thing with that. And also the idea of like a beat the high score kind of arcade game. I'm sure there's been stuff like that, but a lot of it's sort of competitive and not the single player, like get the highest score you can kind of game. So I like seeing that too. So overall, I gave it a 3 out of 10. I think the game has some slight detractors, but overall, I think it looks like a ton of fun. It has so much visual interest for games that we've been playing at the time and fun gameplay to back it up. And the cabinet is just like, I think the cabinet's really cool, and because it's sort of a recognizable type of game, but it's not something everyone has heard of. If I had the option, this would definitely be a arcade cabinet I might add to my collection of, well, nice. start a collection with. I mean, it's I don't have that kind of money, but I think it's cool because it's not like super flashy, but it's weird and unique, but people would look at it and be like, oh, okay, I get what's going on here and I can play it and have fun with it. Yeah. So I'm almost out of breath because I was talking a lot. It's a good game. And I can see why you were excited about Drop Zone 4 after getting to look at the sequel for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the sequel I think Bombs Away looks even better than Drop Zone 4 by like a large margin, honestly. I think it's just like a straight up improvement. I don't think they really, other than the plane, since you've been talking, I looked it up again, and I think it was the same. Maybe I was just seeing things last time. But,
well, still, either way, I mean, that gradient sky is what had the effect on you.
Yeah, it did. And compared to the rectangles of ships at the time, the L plane was probably still, a pretty big benefit.
Right, it's got a tail on the ship, I mean.
Yeah, now that the ships look so good, I mean, makes the whole game, like, I just think it looks so much better with those actual ships. And also, the gradient sky, how it's like really brightest at the very bottom, right? And then the color behind the ships is just the pure black, so it looks like the sea is, I don't know, it almost looks almost bluish in a way. I don't know, it's just the color playing tricks on your eyes.
yeah, but it also does a good job of, since they put the lightest at the bottom, it really gives you that division between the sea and the sky too, so where that line is, which I think is a nice effect. Yeah, I still think it's the best use of color that we've seen in a video game to date. I can't think of another one, honestly. No, I mean, the only other one that did, or that I think that did like a pretty good job, was Steeplechase, and that's not even that great. It just had like cool color horses, but yeah, that's a good point. But I think for maybe, what's the right word for it? Like feeling of where you're at and the atmosphere of what you're playing. I don't think there's something better. So right, yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I'm glad you felt that too, and it wasn't just me. So let's move on. We've got actually a special kind of episode here today because Wes and I both only reviewed a single game, but we're going to go through like 20 something honorable mentions.
we decided to do that just so we can get to the good stuff a little bit faster in this year. So hopefully you guys are okay with that. But let's move on. We've got another one by Meadows Games. Both of these came out in February, by the way. I didn't write it in our notes, but I double checked and they're both in February. This one's called Schizo, I'm going to say.
That's better than I can pronounce it, so yeah.
It's spelled Skidzo. So you got a CK there. I don't know. I'm going to say Schizo. But it's also by Meadows Games. It was a Pong clone, which is very strange because, like Wes mentioned, the last one was like, this isn't a Pong clone. And then the same company, like, it brings out a Pong clone that same month. But this one used inertia, so it was hard to slow down the paddles once they started getting, like, moving, which I think would make the game really hard to play and frustrating. But
yeah, that doesn't sound fun to me.
No. It would be like playing with, like, Pong, but the paddles were like on ice. Like, I don't think that would be good. But it also used a timer rather than a point cap to end the match, which I thought was kind of interesting, but we don't have much info on it other than that. So I just left it as an honorable mention.
And so next up in our list of honorable mentions is Road Race by Sega. You might have heard of them. This one came out in February of 76 as well. And this looks like it was a mix between Speed Race and Highway. It was a racing game that used scrolling graphics and sort of had a more modern day behind the car type of view. But other than that, we don't really have much info on it.
Yeah, I believe there are sequels to that one that we will cover. So hopefully we can eventually review a actually good Sega game.
Right,
I don't think we reviewed any so far. They've all been
no, just electromechanical or no info, yeah. So hopefully we'll get that Sega racing game. I'm fine to start it off with a racing. Mm-hmm. And so next up we have Soccer Trio by Worldwide Video Enterprises. And this one was a cabinet that came with 3 Pong games. It had tennis, which was a Pong doubles kind of game. Soccer, which was Pong with 5 paddles lined up horizontally for each player. Which that sounds kind of interesting with 5 paddles. I don't know how that would work and if it would actually be fun, but at least it's different than some of the other soccer stuff we've seen. Mm-hmm. And lastly, they had a computer mode, which was play versus computer that just moves back and forth, kind of guarding its hole in the wall. But we didn't have any video on that, so we couldn't really confirm what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we've got Kamikaze by Fuji Enterprise. This looks like another one of those top-down fighting shoot 'em up type of games that we've been mentioning a couple times now, but we just cannot find video of any of these games, and this is no exception. There's no emulation either. A lot of these are in Japan, so maybe that's why we just don't have a lot of good info on some of these lower key Japan releases. But interestingly enough, this was later licensed to an Australian company called Leisure and Allied Games, which is different from Allied Leisure.
Oh my goodness.
I know that threw me for a loop for a while before I figured it out. Yeah, Leisure and Allied Games. So they released it as Zero Fighter Kamikaze, but it was the same game just released in Australia. So and that came out in February as well, by the way.
And then next up we have Super Soccer and the Sportsman by Westlake Systems. This played 5 different Pong games, just each with different amounts of paddles basically, and it also had an optional follow lag behind paddle setting.
Could be cool, but I think we've seen that a couple times now actually.
Yeah,
follow lag behind paddle. Moving on, we got 2 more Pong clones here. They're still coming out in 76. I don't know why.
It's
I don't know who's buying these. But we got Combo by Digital Games. As a reminder, Digital Games is that company that's falling apart on the inside. So it doesn't surprise me that they're still bringing the Pong consoles out. But yeah, they've got one called Combo. This played Knockout, which was the Pong clean sweep hybrid thing with the crosses and what was it?
And squares, I think. Yeah.
Squares, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I enjoy that. I think that's a fairly decent Pong clone, but it had that and also had normal Pong and it also had hockey. So it kind of combined the Knockout game with a couple of other, lesser interesting Pong clones in a single cabinet. So I guess it was useful. I don't know. Then we have Fascination, also known as Fascination 700 by the company Fascination.
Wow.
Yeah, which came out in 76 February again. We don't have like any info on this one. I think just a flyer, but I think on the flyer it said that it played a combination of 12 Pong games, but I feel like there's not 12 genuinely different Pong games, so it probably was like, one person's a paddle, one person's a hole in the wall. That's a game. Now you got 2 holes in the wall. That's another game,
Right.
I feel like it was probably like that. So
Yeah.
I don't think it had 12. It probably had a couple, but I'm guessing it probably was just a bunch of Pong games that we've seen already. But we really don't have much info on it.
And so next up, we have a console that came out in early 76, the URL Video Action 3 home console. And this was a URL's attempt at making a cheaper home console. The console itself was sort of a gray plastic, and it had a wood grain finish on the face of it. It had 4 knobs along the edges of it. I think it was only 2-player, but maybe the other paddles were controlled separately in the hockey mode this had. Not too sure what all 4 of those knobs ended up being for on this console. And then in the center of the console, there's this little gold plate kind of fancy looking section that has the game select, game start, and also a human versus or robot mode toggle. So the system only played 2 games. It played tennis and hockey, which I'm sure you've heard of before. Tennis looks like it was the Pong style kind of tennis, could only move vertically. And hockey just likely had more paddles and a smaller goal. We don't really have much information, but if it's anything like other hockey on other consoles of this time, that's probably what it was. One kind of interesting thing about this, each mode could also be played against a robot, and the robot actually had a knob that kind of scaled the difficulty, although I think all the difficulty for the AI knob did was change how fast the AI was allowed to move their paddle when it controlled it. And AI probably isn't even the right word because it's a sort of pre-programmed thing, but it is neat that both these games had the sort of robot option. And it also used 90 chips in it. That's where I got that number in the intro, I guess. That for some reason or another, I didn't look up the technical details. These chips used less energy than the previous video action consoles. So it was actually able to run on batteries instead of requiring a power supply. And that's why this one ended up being cheaper, because it was able to do that, and the power supply, cutting the power supply out, saved them a decent bit of cost. And after that, we have another honorable mention, which is the Video Action 3 coin-op version, which is different than the home console one that I just talked about. And this one could go up to 4 players. It had a 1 or 2 player versus AI modes, and it also played volleyball and sort of the tennis that we've seen before, where each person is in their own quadrant of the screen. And also it had a slam button to kind of mess with the ball when it's in the air or power hit it. So interesting to see that it had all those on the coin-op version, but not on the home console. But I guess that's the difference between having a cabinet and having a home console.
Yeah, probably cost a lot more on the cabinet.
yeah, I'm sure.
So, yeah, that was cool. We've seen the URL around quite often, so I'm interested to see where they're going to go.
Yeah.
No foreshadowing there at all. So next up, we've got the last console I'm going to be talking about today. This is called the Teletennis Multijuegos console. Came out in Spain in 76 and was basically a clone of the Interton Video 2000, which I rated and reviewed in 75, I believe. Which that console was interesting because it used cartridges, and so does this console. So it's actually kind of an interesting one. It's basically an exact ripoff, so there's not much new to say. But I like how in the console they have like a flyer for the console, and the Interton 2000 had 2 games that were unreleased, and because this was a clone, it also had 2 games that were unreleased, and it had included them in the advertising as well, which I thought was really funny. But it's interesting because on this one, the 2 games that were unreleased, one's like a racing game and one's a naval bombardment type game. And this one, they actually have little pictures of those games, even though they never came out. But the Interton 2000, I couldn't find any pictures of them. So I was like, wow, somehow I get more info of the clone than the real thing. But yeah, basically it had a bunch of Pong games. Again, since these were cartridges, I think you could only, like, if you only wanted to buy a couple, I think you could. I'm not quite sure if they were all bundled together or not, but you had Squash, which was, you know, your 1 or 2 player versus a wall. They had a different game called Handball, but that was just Odyssey style Pong. You had Tennis, which is your Pong gameplay. I read somewhere that the ball can wrap around the screen. I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate, but
I'm confused about what that would mean for a Pong game where the edges of the screen are how you score.
well, I think it means only
Top
north
and
and
bottom.
south edge.
Okay, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, which would be kind of cool, I think. And then they had Tennis Rebound, which is the same game, but I think the ball doesn't bounce off the edges. So I think these are differences in between this one and the Interton. By the way, I don't think the Interton did this, but it also could just be a translation error because this was in like Spanish. So I'm not 100% positive, but yeah, you had those two. I mean, basically Pong style games, and you had football, which was your kind of hockey type game with smaller goals. But I really kind of wanted to review this more because I thought, actually, from the flyers and stuff, it looks like it has a fair amount of character to it. And I'm interested to see not only, you know, what they do with the cartridges, but also what these Spanish people, you know, what their video gaming skills are. But I couldn't find any video, so we just had to, you know, use the flyers, and that's all the information I could really find from it. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting one, I thought. It kind of reminded me of the good old days of the Interton Video 2000. So
brought you back.
Yeah, and I liked being able to look at the 2 unreleased games. The racing game kind of looks like Highway or something, you know, but the car looks really good on it, honestly, for a console. And then the naval bombardment, the picture is just 2 ships and a line that connects the 2 that I guess was a shot. So I don't know how that one would have worked, but
maybe your Pong paddles just turned into ships. And
yeah, I don't know. But, yeah, it was kind of cool. I wish we could have played that one.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see if there actually was that difference between Tennis and Tennis Rebound.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Let me go back to the Interton quick and see what those games. Oh yeah, they had like a chase game. This one did not have a chase game, I don't believe, unless the translation was really off. But so that's one difference, I think, between the two. I don't think this one had a chase game.
Huh.
And
so for being
also it had Super Tennis, which was one that kept score, and I don't believe this one keeps score at all. So there are some differences here, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's surprising it's not just a exact clone. They actually have a little bit different with the same hardware, I guess.
Yeah, maybe just moved a couple circuits around or whatever.
That sounds like what people do, but I don't really. Very cool. The Multijuegos. Or no, by Multijuegos, right? Is that the company for that console?
No, the company is actually called Teletennis, I think.
Oh, okay. That's confusing.
The Multijuegos means multi-games.
Yeah, multi-games. Yeah. Well, very interesting. And in case you thought that we were done butchering foreign pronunciations, I have a foreign console. Yeah. The Fernsespiel, which sounds like I knew what I was saying, right? But probably not. The Fernsespiel TVG 2006, which is super confusing. It made me think of like the year 2006. Yeah. TVG, apparently, this was just somebody who was looking at this guessing, but they said probably means television game because apparently that's what Fernsespiel means in German as well. Okay. And this was by a German company called Mestron. And this was basically the same internals and technology as the British Videosport Mark II console that was released at the very end of 74. But this one actually adds 3 more games. So kind of in a similar vein to the one that we were just looking at, this kind of clones exactly what the console was, but then adds a little bit more to it, or at least does something a little bit differently. So for the console itself, it was very bland. It was all gray plastic. It had 2 knobs on each side, one for vertical movement and one for horizontal movement. and it looks like there might have been a ball speed control knob as well. A little bit hard to tell because the images that we had for this weren't super great. But the games that I had on it that were from the Video Sport Mark II, there was tennis, which was your typical Pong style game, except once I saw the horizontal movements, I realized it must be more like the Odyssey style, so you could move horizontally in this one. And then football, which was tennis basically, except it had smaller scoring zones on each side, similar to the hockey, soccer, footballs that we've been seeing. And this only had the 2 paddles, so it was like the goalie and the forward that we've seen in a lot of these soccer football games. And the other one from the Video Sport that was brought over to this one was Hole in the Wall, except on this console it was labeled as Squash. But for some reason, even though it was Squash, the hole was still in the wall, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
And I think it was only 1 player, so it's kind of weird. It sounds like they just like broke practice mode. Because Hole in the Wall on the Video Sport Mark II, I think 1 player could actually move the hole in the wall because their whole paddle turned into the wall with the hole in it.
Right.
But in this one, it looked like it was just 1 person playing squash, but there's a hole in the wall. So I don't know. I don't know what would happen if you get it through the hole. If you lose a point, gain a point, who knows? But that was brought over in some way or another. And I should say that we didn't have clear images of exactly what all of these games were. There was kind of just these small images and then German descriptions of what the games were under them that were a pretty low resolution because this wasn't a super popular and widely documented system. So I could be getting that wrong, but from what I could see, that's what Squash on the Spiel was. And so the 3 games that were new to this console, it had one called Baseball, which seems really interesting. But as far as I could tell, it just looks like tennis, except there's no dividing line in the center. But there's no video of it, so there's no way to really know how the gameplay was different, or since there wasn't really on-screen scoring, if maybe you had to make up the rules, kind of like Odyssey style, and you had to keep track of maybe running bases, or who knows. But basically, on the demo on the side of the box, where like it shows a picture of what the game is, it's just 2 paddles on a black screen. So there might have had to be a lot of imagination in that one. I'm not sure. And one of the other ones they added was basketball. And this one, it's also a little hard to tell exactly what's going on, but it looks like there is only 1 wall with a hole in it instead of 2 baskets on either side. And 1 player is a paddle who's playing defense on the hole, and the other person is trying to hit it into the basket. Like I said, there were several different images on this box, and it was hard to associate which one was representing which game, but I'm pretty sure this one was the basketball game, so it is a little bit different than I think we've seen some basketball before where it's kind of just 2 holes in the wall at the top of either side of the screen, sort of like a shifted up soccer or hockey kind of game. And the last one that this added was a practice mode, which is just the standard practice mode that we've seen where there's a solid wall and the player's hitting the ball against it, which makes more sense as squash. I don't know. It's some of it's the lost in translation, but also this console just confuses me a little bit. It has some interesting stuff to it, but yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one, the Spiel.
Mm-hmm. The flyer is kind of weird looking too, honestly.
It is, yeah. Just like all the 2 kids and the mom watching them play. Or is that might be on the box, but
oh yeah, on the box.
Yeah,
it's like this weird cartoon family, German cartoon family,
all having lots of fun. I guess playing this strange version of the squash where it's a hole in the wall.
Yeah. I also want to quickly mention, so that one was kind of like an expansion of the Video Sport Mark II, like Wes mentioned. And then the same company also released a console called the MEC TV Games TVG 1000, which was just a straight port of Video Sport Mark II with no new games. So I wanted to put that in there with this one while we're talking about it.
Right.
So yeah, and that's going to be the last console for today, and that leaves me with the final game of the day,
Ooh.
Interceptor by Taito, which I was not able to play, but I saw some great videos of. I will say the videos are by Taito. They did like a little mini documentary back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Well, you actually watched some of it, Wes, because Western Gun was from that same.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So I'm always like a little nervous taking Taito's like word for what actually happened because they're obviously biased.
Right.
But this came out in March of '76. It's the only game in this episode that's from March. And it's kind of a crazy one, honestly, because essentially what the game is, I mean, just think about Star Wars turret ship gameplay, you know?
Right.
So you're kind of in this turret of a ship, and you've got a joystick. So I guess when you turn, the camera turns. It was kind of hard to tell how much control over the camera you had, but there's no real aiming on the screen. You just have to kind of turn your camera into the enemy aircraft until they're right in the middle of the screen, and then you can fire and blow them up. So I think a large part of this game was benefited by the overlay, because the overlay had your, aim down sight thing.
Reticle.
Yeah, your little reticle on the middle of the screen, and that's what you had to get the sprites in that reticle to know if you were going to hit them.
Okay.
It also had these kind of lines that were kind of like in a diamond shape on the screen that made you feel like you were in a cockpit. So that was really cool. And then the game itself, it had obviously enemy aircraft, and it was kind of looking like a straightforward view of the aircraft. So you kind of saw it. It would be like if it was coming straight at you. So it kind of just looked like two wings side to side and like a circle in the middle. So they weren't like the best looking aircraft, but there were a fair amount of them on the screen at one time. And if you turn the camera, it felt like they kept coming, like more respawning or something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure if they were all there all the time. I want to say no, but it's kind of hard to tell with the limited footage we have of this game how exactly the spawning worked. But essentially, we're just moving the camera around, trying to get them in the middle of the screen and hitting the fire button to blow them up. Something that's really interesting about this game is I've seen a couple sources saying it's the first game with scaling sprites. Now, we already know that Panther did this, so it's not the first game maybe, but maybe the first arcade game that had it, because the airplanes that you were fighting against, I guess, I watched the footage and it's not really that obvious, but I do think they slightly changed proportion to make it seem like they were flying away or towards you. I think usually towards you, but I don't think they ever would like crash into you or anything. So,
boo, no fun.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty slight thing. I think it really just added some variety to the size of the ships that you were trying to take down. Is all.
Maybe added a couple pixels to what they usually had there.
Yeah. It also had some clouds that looked like they were generated graphically. So when you turned the camera, the clouds would move. The whole thing was very fluid, which I'm almost nervous about, kind of rating this, because it looked pretty darn good, honestly. So the other thing that's kind of a weird thing about it is, I'll talk about this more when I talk about sound, but some of the sounds kind of sounded electromechanical as well. So I think there's some skepticism with this game. Take it with a pinch of salt, but we'll take Taito's word for it and rate it as I see it in their video. So let's start out with graphics, because I've already talked about it quite a bit. But really, having the planes move in and out of your sight in a way that feels really natural, and having them have that slight difference in size and look like they're kind of moving towards you or away from you very slightly, it looks good. And the overlay really helps, because the overlay really puts you in the cockpit and makes you feel like you're in a cockpit, and that's awesome. So graphically, it's like really good, I think, especially with what they do with the camera and having the clouds move. Like when you move the camera too, like I just feel like you're in first person, even though it's kind of a turrety, so you're never moving the first person camera forward or backward or anything. You're just kind of looking around. But I think they do a really, really good job. So I gave the graphics a 4 out of 10 because it just looks good. It's a really good looking game.
Yeah, it sounds crazy.
Yeah, it feels very advanced just with the controller and the camera movement and how everything moves with your movement. So graphics I gave 4 out of 10 because of that. For sound, this is the one I want to quickly talk about. I gave 2 out of 10 because it sounds okay. You've got your general, airplane idle engine kind of noise. You've got your ship being destroyed noise when you shoot someone down. And then the weird thing is the actual firing of your weapon sound. That sounds really weird. It sounds I don't know. It sounds electromechanical, honestly. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'll definitely put a sound clip of it in so people can hear. But it almost sounds like the shutter of a camera or something, like that click, over and over again, like click, 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 something like that. But yeah, it's kind of mechanically, and I don't really like that. I'm like, is this part of the game? I don't know. We're getting into that weird territory, but it didn't sound like good either. So, like a gun. I will say, by the way, the gun shooting sort of animation or whatever, the 2 lines coming out, it's like when you fire the gun, it's kind of like you're shooting 2 guns from your left and right side that both kind of go up towards the middle. So if there's a ship in that middle, it'll explode then. And you got a little, one of those explosion gas clouds or something. But it's interesting that it's 2 bullets kind of coming out into that and going towards the middle instead of just a single shot or something. So that was cool. And you can also fire a couple times, at once. So you could probably have 4 shots or something on the screen at any one time, which is pretty cool. You could fire pretty fast. So that was pretty cool. I don't know if it's hard to tell from the one video I had, but I couldn't tell if those 4 shots were you hit the button once and you fire a couple times, or if they were actually firing it a bunch of times them manually. So maybe it was all part of one, but either way, that was cool. But that goes into graphics again. The sound wasn't that good for it. For gameplay, I gave it 2 out of 10. It's okay, but the fact that the enemies aren't really dodging you at all, and they're also not really firing at you, it basically feels like target shooting almost.
It's like a shooting gallery, yeah.
So I don't think there's much challenge here at all. You're just kind of lining things up, waiting for them to get in the crosshairs and firing. So I thought it could still be fun just because it gives you the illusion of being in a cockpit and being able to turn basically any direction, forward, backward, and find enemies and shoot them down. So, I thought it was decent, but very simple. And then for relevance, I gave it a 7 out of 10, pretty high because, well, a couple things. One, it says it's the first game with scaling graphics. I don't think that's the case, but either way, it is an early game with scaling sprites, and that's obviously a massive deal. I love the way they did the camera. It feels first person in a way that's not using just the wireframe graphics. It's actually using sprites and stuff. I don't know if I've seen that before, honestly. So I thought that was really, really good. Just the way the camera moved, it felt very FPS-y, very modern, and feels like you're, if I was playing GTA 5 and I was in a plane and went into first person, it would basically be like this, except your plane would actually be moving in space. But
right.
I feel like it has a lot of things that a lot of more modern and future games are going to be using those same sort of mechanics or building upon them. So I wanted to give it a high relevance score for that. So overall, we've got a game that's a 3.75 out of 10. It's a very solid game. I think the graphics and just how they do the controls and the camera is really what makes this game awesome. I mean, if it comes out now or whenever it came out, Taito says it came out in March, but whenever it came out, it's still a good game. So I hope you guys check it out. There is that video on YouTube. Check it out. See what you think. What do you think, Wes?
It sounds really cool, and it's making me wonder, was basketball, or whichever it was, the really good one, was that Taito as well?
Yeah, the one with the basketball human sprites.
Yeah,
yeah, it was.
Yeah, interesting. Because I remember there was the other one where we were like, this looks like way too good for the time.
That was baseball.
Oh, that was baseball. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And that was by Midway, I think.
Oh, okay. I was going to start my conspiracy theories if that was Taito as well. But
it might have been Taito. There's a couple versions of it.
This definitely does sound like a really cool one. And I mean, just different perspective at this time in arcade games is always a really cool thing to see. Like, that's why I was even like kind of excited when Ace was turned it to a horizontal instead of top down jet fighter, basically, perspective. So seeing that you're like the actual in the turret, that's really cool.
Yeah.
It brings me back to the days of, I don't know, I forget what the game's called, but it was some old like Windows whatever 98 Star Wars game where you are in a TIE fighter and it's basically they're just all flying at you and you're sitting still and you're in the turret just shooting a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can get that. You got those two lasers coming from the side of the screen that meet the vector in the middle.
Yeah.
So I was picturing that the whole time. That's pretty cool to see out of a arcade game in 76.
Yeah, and early 76 at that. And I think they did a really good job of taking part of the graphical component and moving it to the overlay so that it had more power to do, that sort of camera controller gameplay with all the ships and stuff.
Right. And they couldn't put all those planes on there if they had any of that overlay represented on the actual screen, I'm sure.
Yeah, because if you think about it, if you take away the overlay, you really have no indication of when you can fire at somebody, which I think is kind of crazy to think about, because the actual game without the overlay is just a black screen with some clouds and some planes moving around, but you have no no indication of when something's in the middle. So I thought they did a good job of taking what they could and moving it to an overlay so that they had more power to do what they wanted to do in the gameplay side. So I think it was just kind of a combination of a lot of great ideas and implementation of it. So
do you want to hear my lame joke for this one? It sounds really cool, but I got a dumb joke.
Okay.
Since you're not moving, maybe they should just call it intercepted instead of interceptor.
Because they're all coming towards you?
Yeah. I appreciate you laughing at that, but
yeah. The I should say the cabinet, by the way, looked pretty cool. It was kind of like this like a jet, but like a really fast looking jet. I don't know, like a sports car jet type thing.
Okay, yeah.
On it with like I don't know. It wasn't fire, but it was very red and kind of gave the illusion that it was flying up really fast, across the side of the cabinet, which was pretty cool.
Oh, nice, yeah.
So, points for that. But yeah, it was a very solid game, very unique and interesting. I wish I could have played it myself, but we only had video. But yeah, people should definitely check it out because it's probably one of the most unique games that we're going to see all year, honestly. I don't think anyone else is doing stuff like this. So yeah, it was cool. And I think with that, we are going to close it out for today. Wes, it's been awesome. As always, you've been awesome.
Well, thank you, Ben. You've been awesome.
Please check out our website and check out our
Twitter.
Twitter.
Make sure to send us an email if you have any questions or you want to let us know anything.
Check out our YouTube. No, check out my YouTube. I think I'm going to have another video up by the time this comes out. So
there you go. See the man behind the music.
Yeah, me playing some of this music. So maybe I'll put a link to that. Is that all? Or email us. I think that's it now.
Yeah. We got all of it. Email us twice. Tweet us 5 times. Stuff like that. You know the drill by now.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
But it's been a good episode. Thank you guys all for tuning in, listening to this one. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you guys in the next one.